football, and then it changes. And then you find yourself in a hospital bed, and you find yourself with these people saying, you're a miracle, and you're pissed. And you know that your life is never going to be the same. But I believe that through all the things that you've done through these years for other people, and we'll get into that, but I believe, I'll go back to the beginning when you were telling us about your friend and collecting cards and pictures and everything. That is one of the reasons why you're still here. That for her and people like her is that you are still here and you worked your ass off. They said you wouldn't walk, you walk. They said you wouldn't have use of your arms, you use your arm. You still are here and doing things at the risk of getting punched miraculously.
Right.
I'll be one of those people that say you're a miracle, but I get so overwhelmed with this because I do this. I think I've got another day. I think I have these moments. And I told you in the post in response to, whenever I'm down, and believe me, I wanted to chat a little bit about this and what's happened recently. But when I get really down, I'm so unmotivated, so like I can't breathe, like the weight of the world is on me. And I think, am I having a heart attack or is this depression? Because of what life has dealt me. It is you and folks like you, like Inky Johnson, like you. And I mirror you with him, and he's a really pretty cool, famous guy. He's a really cool cat, yeah. And I follow him, and I think he's amazing, and he's trying to change lives every day. Just like you. This show, I say, I go back to my City Slickers thing. It was, I wish a bunch of people would listen, but if I help one, then I'm good with that. Because in City Slickers, that's what they said. If they can help, if he can change one life, and he was saving that baby calf. But I want you to know that, and the listeners, there's nothing corny about this. Like it really was devastating as a family member, and this shit goes on every day. I mean, people are in accidents and things like that. But just in, like, to have you come that far, to have your entire life turned upside down, and for you to say you wouldn't change a thing. Why?
Well, like I said, when after it happened, and as the process went, because I ended up spending 13 months in a nursing home. And that was one of the neatest experiences. When I first got there, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, it was an old people's nursing home. Part of it was hospice, right? So I'm the youngest person in there, and I'm not a spring chicken. I was the youngest person in there.
Sure.
Shit, by at least 30, 40 years. Now, mind you, that generation was the greatest generation that ever lived.
Absolutely.
Quote unquote. So I would sit there and start talking to them. I knew I was going to be there. So you have to have that acceptance. It's like, because I've been there too. I've been locked up. You have that acceptance of, okay, this is where I'm at. I got to do my time and, be on my way. This is different, obviously different, but I knew I was there. I knew I was there for a reason. I knew I had a goal in mind. I knew what I had to do to get done to, and a lot of it was pride and ego too, because they were going to amputate my leg and my arm, and they did. I ended up giving them both. And then they told me I would never walk without assistance or have use of my arm, like you said. And I had to prove them wrong. I just couldn't stop until I could. And, but I was in there with these people that, and I would ask them every day, I'd be like, what's your biggest regret? And there was one woman in there who was 103. You talk about ornery. Wow.
Yeah.
She raised 10 kids. She goes, I wish I would have traveled outside of Akron, like Summit County. She'd never left Summit County. Her whole life. Her whole life was
Yeah.
was her family, and raising these kids, and her. I think she worked for Goodyear for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean she worked during the war when her husband went away for the war. But that was her whole thing. She never left Akron. And you talk to these people and the experiences that they had, and then you had people that went everything from that to World War II veterans that were overseas, to men of business. You had all these avenues and different things in life that they experienced, and they would sit around, and this was their end of days, and they were okay with it. They were okay with what they had accomplished in life. Most people aren't. Most people are like, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah.
But to see these people, they were happy, and that there was another changing point.
Well, and to that, I get what you're saying. You would have never been enriched by those people had this not happened.
No.
I agree with you, and I'm a writer, and I've written a lot of things that are extremely unpublished. That's some of my good news that I'm going to change. That's going to change here. But I am fascinated by the seniors. I am, and always have been. And when I worked for a newspaper in Massillon, it allowed me to. I was in charge of the senior page. And I said I wanted to change things up and spotlight a senior. So what I did is I went to different homes, senior homes, and these nursing homes. And, you walk in, and some of them are really nice and some of them aren't. But some of them that are nice, it's like a city. They work out, they have their different crafts and different things that they do. But what I enjoyed most is doing that spotlight. Talking to 100-year-old guy that said that he used to work in the dairy, and when you do, you're up to half of your leg in water, in just mess in these dairies, and he remembered freezing. He was frozen at work all the time. And when this delivery opportunity came up for him to deliver milk, as we all know, there used to be a milkman, he pounced right on it. And so what happened is, because of that, he knew everybody in the community. And that, you talk about the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or things that you wished. The thing that he knew at that time is that community had disappeared. That, it was safe for this guy to come to your home and deliver milk and chat with you for a moment. And I know there's all the jokes about the milkman and everything, but he absolutely loved it and raised like 10 kids on this delivery salary. And I just, it was so cool. He was going to be celebrating 100 years, and he was telling me all these stories. And I know what you mean by it allows you to, of course, we have older people in our families and stuff, but it allows you to learn all these different experiences. Todd, there's so many people that never left Akron. There's so many people that did that. Us as a family, if there wasn't such a thing called Canada, we didn't go on vacation. The first real vacation I ever went on was to Canada, and I was 13 years old. They nested. They stayed close. They were fine with being right here because they visited and they had coffee and they did all this socializing and took care of one another. So this person that you're speaking of, great family member, she's 103, she's all feisty. I'll bet she knew so many people that could call on her for, I know that, they talked about, you could just pick up the phone and you could call your neighbor and say, hey, I got to go somewhere. Can you help me with the kids? And they did. They just came over. I mean, it was a completely different way of life. We try and have that now, but it's just There's trust issues, there's hate issues, and I agree with you. And it's easy for us to get sucked into the hatred. I can't believe it's almost like you put gas to an ant farm and all of the ants came up out of the ground and they're really bad ants. And it's like, where in the hell did all these people come from that hate everybody so much, or just have so much hate in their heart they don't mind burning a building or hurting somebody or throwing a brick in the back of somebody's head? I never saw anything like it. We've always had hatred, but there is a force in the universe right now that is embracing it and allowing it. And, at the risk of getting into sticky politics and things like that, there really is a free ticket to hate right now. And I've always been the type of person that hate is such a huge word, but the person I am, I can get really pissed off, but I don't hate you.
Oh, yeah.
I can get really angry, but I don't hate you. God gave us these different emotions to have to stay healthy. So if we do feel angry, you feel it, you walk through it. I'm sure, like you said, even with your situation, you were pissed. You have to work through it. In a way, Todd, someone like yourself had to grieve a life that you were no longer going to live. But at the same time, we embrace the new life that we're going to be living. And however minor and stupid and little it is, we all have our threshold. But you opened up this segment with you were talking on the show about we never know. So a lot of times what I do, when I get really angry about the politics or what's going to happen or the fear, oh my gosh, if they come into political office, we're going to lose all of our freedom. And I just feed like a Thanksgiving dinner, just feed my brain with all of this fear of what's going to happen and what are we going to do? And it's what we populate our minds with. Like you said, you're laying there and you're feeding your mind with negativity. If we allow that, then they will win. So what happened to me earlier this year is I was laid off from a job I thought I would have and retire. I love my job. I was laid off temporarily, and in July, it was made permanent. So I not only grieved from knowing I was non-essential back in March, which hurt my ego to no end. We'll talk. I know you and I love to talk about ego. I was like, what? You couldn't find something for me to do? I mean, I just couldn't believe it was happening. I was stable in my income. I was stable in my finances. I've got a beautiful boyfriend, home, family. Everything was right. And then boom, wham. So I thought, well, much like everybody else, I'll nest. We'll do some construction. We'll do some redecorating. And then before July, I'll be back to work. Nope. In July, that was made permanent. So now I get to grieve it again. And so once I stopped feeling sorry for myself, and I did, I was in a fetal position, just thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? Fear, 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 fear. And then it hit me. I thought that this job brought me security. I thought I was going to retire at this job. And people think, well, if I work for a company, I'm going to be secure. If I've got my benefits, I've got my weekly paycheck coming in every week, and I thought I had that. No, we are all sort of running our own business and can risk losing everything just like we're running our own business, just as if you had a job. And I know I was feeling sorry for myself, but I know that this happened to millions of people. And they have families, kids that they have to feed. So I got off my pity party and said, what if all of the things that I've done through my life that are sitting in bins called a bunch of books, children's stories, things that I've written, this show, What if I started my own business?